Good evening, folks. We're queued up for another exciting verbal adventure in YouTube land with our guests coming up. But before we go and do that, let's give Kent a chance to thank our last guest.
So, welcome everyone to episode number 35 for today. We want to thank last week's guest, Christian Harch of YouTube channel Treasure Town, for sharing with us as to how he got into numismatics, which is also known as coin collecting. His passion for coin collecting being upright and honest to people on his knowledge of the subject, as well as the different nuances that coin collecting can lead you into, kind of how I always look for error coins. Isn't that right, Amit? In my change.
That is for sure.
And as well, go ahead.
And he was quite young. That was the part that stuck out to me.
Yes, as well as for his Pokemon knowledge. So be sure to check out his channel. Amit.
For sure, it was a riot to talk to him. We talked to him off camera for a little bit.
We did, yes, yeah.
He's extremely articulate. I have to say the younger crowd that we've interviewed on our show have been really articulate, highly intelligent. It makes me feel bad as a 17-year-old that I didn't put that much effort into my education. So hats off to these folks. So just before I introduce the next guest, I want to quickly give a shout out to Name Indigenous Rookie Cards, and just to point out a very important holiday that's recognized in Canada this Thursday. It's a day for National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. So our family will be doing our part to make sure we educate ourselves and our children about Indigenous culture and make sure we're paying respect to those who do. So Name, a shout out to you that you came first and you reminded me of an important thing that I needed to say. So I hope everyone gets out in Canada and supports that day. So let's get to an exciting moment here. So our next guest has quite the ancestral line. Her great-grandfather was the first publicist of the New York Yankees and the first real agent for Mantle and Berra. That's kind of cool, right? Like, my ancestry can't even talk about that, so that's pretty cool. She's played sports all her life. She has a doctorate in sports management from The Ohio State. I can't say I've done that either, and that sounds kind of cool. Currently, she coaches men's rugby and is a professor educating folks in the art of sports marketing. Again, another cool feature. As you can see, sports plays a high social currency within her family. She began her journey into collecting women's cards by spotting a Manon Rhéaume hockey card early in her collecting career. I particularly took this point out from our conversation because I'm a hockey fan, and for those who don't know, and it's an important fact, Manon was the first woman to play in any major North American pro sports league. She signed on with Tampa Bay Lightning system in 1992, and can you believe it's been almost 30 years ago? That is crazy. So let's bring on bring on Annemarie.
I
wouldn't be very good at hockey. My problem isn't skating. My problem was always stopping. So my NHL career would be pretty short.
Most players don't know how to stop anyway, and that's why they're goons. Anyway, that's a different story. So I want to get into a little bit about your story, but before we go there, when we were talking to you a few weeks back, you told us of a cool phrase, and I'll paraphrase it. You can't see what you can be. And this speaks to the true power, how positively influencing diversity within sports and hobby in general is an important and simple mechanic. You must show athletes on cards in order to show that you can be part of the sports that you want to be a part of and part of the hobby family. I'll give you an example. When I was a young kid, I was the only Indian kid on my team. And when I heard that, the Anaheim Mighty Ducks had drafted Robin Bawa up to the big leagues, I actually, for the first time, realized, whoa, there's someone just like me out there. And it gave me an amazing feeling that it is possible. And through our conversation with various guests and actually talking to you, Annemarie, that I remembered that. So I'm happy that I brought that back up because I mentioned it to my son on the weekend as we were just going through hockey tryouts. So what does it feel like? So let's go back to basics. What does it feel like to know your ancestors had a part to play in Yankees history?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool. I mean, I grew up with a lot of stories about my great-grandfather. There's actually one picture that I have. I must have been about a year old, and he's holding me. And he unfortunately passed away not too long after that. But once in a while, I will connect with someone, or someone will connect with me, and I'll mention his name, Jackie Farrell. And if they're probably between the ages of like 65 and maybe 80. There's been a couple times I've had parents of one of the rugby players that I coached in when I coached rugby at Denison, and one of their grandfathers was at a game and mentioned that Jackie Farrell had he wrote into the Yankees and asked for tickets once, and he got a letter back, and he remembered it was from Jackie Farrell. That's something as a traveling secretary he would have done. So, yeah, I mean, I think to a certain extent, one of my uncles and cousin are sport writers, so I think that was something that was definitely part of the family.
And you mentioned your grandfather's name, so I thought that was pretty cool when we talked. I find history a neat aspect of anyone's life and their ancestral line, and it's kind of cool. You got a bit of the Yankees history in your back pocket. You can pull it up like, yeah, well, I got family.
I mean, so, I don't help me get numbers at bars, but I think that's it. At least I don't think it has. But I mean, he worked in baseball at a time when it was very, very different. My father would talk about Roger Maris stopping off when he would be at his grandfather's house in the off season because Roger Maris worked as a beer distributor. Because all those players worked in different jobs, and it was a different time, right? So
yeah.
When I talk to students in my classes, to them that's ancient history, but it doesn't seem that long ago.
It isn't in the entire ecosystem of the history itself, but for some young kids, they're like, whatever, they don't understand. Mm-hmm. It is okay. We don't want them to understand. We enjoy it more. Mm-hmm. Just before we go into other questions, I want to say hi to Name again. So thank you for joining. Dennis as well. Actually, I'm still on screen. So Name again, thanks for coming.
Hello,
Dennis,
Name.
Hello, Dennis comes up every show we're here. Dennis is always around, so we really appreciate your support. We have a good buddy, Jeremy from Sports Cards Live. He's got a really neat show that if you want to check out in the YouTube land every Saturday, and does moonlight from time to time on other YouTube forums. And we have Jeremy again, so he's saying hi there. So I want to get back to some of our questions. I have another cool thing to share with Annemarie. She shares a passion, or I hope you do. Maybe I should qualify that. You had season tickets to the Buffalo Bills. I'm still a Bills fan. Are you a Bills fan still?
I am. Well, it would be sad if I stopped being a Bills fan now when finally they're relevant.
Yes.
I've had season tickets with the Bills for 16 years now, and I told people that when the Bills become relevant again, the world will end, and I really wasn't that far off. So,
no.
It's a fun time to be a Bills fan, and I'm enjoying it, but I'm still not. Everyone says they're going to the Super Bowl. I know that the Bills will often Bills. The Bills will Bills. So yeah. I'm not ready yet to make that bet.
I won't even take that bet when they're in the Super Bowl until the game ends. Just saying. I've been through heartbreak over and over again. I'm not doing that again.
Yeah.
And also, I have in honor of our show tonight, I'm going to put our Bills hat on.
I think they say that sports don't make you bitter, but it definitely enhances your memory.
Yes, for all the wrong reasons.
True.
They also say if you didn't want your life to suck, don't get born in Buffalo. So there's like a number of things I think that being a Bills fan explains.
I'm sure we have a Canadian equivalent, but since we're going to grow our show, I won't go there. Wanted to ask you, do you keep any of your Buffalo Bills ticket stubs or memorabilia from the games? And what are some of the games that stand out to you?
It's been a long time since I've had a ticket stub. You're aging me right now. It's funny that I just said that it doesn't make you bitter, but it sharpens your memory. I very much, probably a game that sticks out into my mind would be when the Bills lost 6-3 to Cleveland Browns. Derek Anderson, the quarterback of the Browns, had the lowest rating of a winning quarterback in a game. And I just remember driving home and thinking, why do we do this? Why do I attach my emotional happiness on Monday morning to what a group of millionaires do 3 hours away? That sticks out. Some of the winter games stick out. But it's sometimes gets the going to the Jacksonville playoff game sticks out. I flew in there and I drove with a friend from Atlanta to the game, and there's like no such thing as Jacksonville fans. They were all kind of like paid actors, but that was fun. So
was Jacksonville the lateral pass penalty the game? Was that the one that was really bitter? I can't remember now.
No, I think Jacksonville was the game where Tyrod Taylor got injured. So like the last play, it ended up with like Peterman throwing. It was like, this is appropriate, right? Like this is an appropriate way to end the season. So
I have to ask you, that 6-3 game, was that all field goals?
it might have been. I mean, honestly, I think I blocked it out. Like I think my mind won't let me go there to save my sanity. But it was bad. Like it was bad. It was like it was bad. It was bad.
But let's think about the good days. Like remember there was the comeback against the Houston Oilers. Like that was a brilliant game.
I didn't grow up a lifelong Bills fan, so like that's the thing. It's like I don't have the like long term. Like I've only suffered for like 16 years, right? So like I kind of adopted the Bills when I moved to upstate New York. I didn't grow up. I loved watching football, but I didn't grow up with a specific team in mind. So. The Liberty, however, the New York Liberty is probably a better example of lifelong suffering, as every time I see a 25th anniversary of the WNBA, I'm reminded that we haven't won a championship in 25 years. And it's been a long time since I watched us lose a championship in Madison Square Garden. So there's suffering. I went to a Liberty game this year and I remember thinking I wore a Sabrina shirt because I really like Sabrina, but I was just like, first person that asked me if I started liking the Liberty when she was drafted is going to get like stabbed in the neck. Like, I'll get like an accident. Like I'll be like, oh, I'm really sorry. I didn't realize that I was carrying my scissor into the arena that way. So
I'm like that with the Leafs. I think it's been 54 years since we held the Stanley Cup. And we were supposed to have won the Stanley Cup 3 times by now. So anyways, I'm just not going to go there. I'm going to turn it over to Kent to go through some of the questions as well.
Okay.
So thank you for sharing some of your favorite moments there in football. What sports did you play when you were younger?
Yeah, so when I was younger, I played basketball decently. Soccer I was good at because I was a goalie. And softball was like my real sport. I love softball. I mean, I remember I was a kid. I loved Dot Richardson, was like one of my favorite players growing up. I remember getting her book and like reading it in one sitting. But then when I went to college, I decided to pick up rugby. And that's the sport that has sort of followed me through adulthood. And I coach now, and then I work in rugby management and administration. So, being a sport participant has been, definitely a current throughout my whole life.
So what kind of made you go from softball to rugby then?
Softball. So I went to the athletic powerhouse, Mount Holyoke College, which is not an athletic powerhouse. GE Women's College, which is like our dressage team, our riding team is like awesome. Before I was starting to play softball, I thought, everyone's talking about rugby. There's no fall ball here. I'll play rugby and then maybe I'll go play softball in the spring. And I just loved rugby and just never went back. So college is a great time to start something totally new. Like it's, college, the theme of college is like poor life choices. And what better poor life choice than playing a contact sport like rugby, says my 43-year-old niece now. So.
So you mentioned to us you were in the card game way before you focused your collection on specifically women's sports cards. Mm-hmm. Can you give us some insight into how that started and how that evolved?
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever met someone that started collecting women's cards. Like I think in a lot of ways how I got into sport card collecting was kind of how a lot of women get into watching sports. Like through men, like, you know what I mean? My dad was interested. I loved sport growing up. And I just naturally gravitated towards sport cards. So I remember, the 1984 tops and 85. I loved 87. Like I loved baseball cards. And I got really interested about the age of 8 when Jordan started in NBA cards. I didn't really collect a lot of football cards growing up. It was mostly baseball and basketball. And I loved it. I bring them to class and we would trade, and you'd buy Beckett magazine, and there was a great card shop, Thunder Road, which is as a Springsteen, it was in central New Jersey, and it's Springsteen, but Thunder Road Cards and Comics, I have no clue if it exists anymore, but I would go there. I remember my parents taking me there all the time, and it was fun. It was a way to connect with other people who like sports. So my entry to sports was baseball and basketball cards.
Awesome.
Thunder Road, huh?
That's an amazing name.
Great name. And in New Jersey, you're either a Bruce Springsteen fan or you're a Bon Jovi fan, and we were a Bruce Springsteen household. It's required.
That's true.
Yeah, you have to pick one.
What would you name the shop if you're a Bon Jovi fan?
Wow, that's a really good question. I guess that's
bad medicine.
That's what the comment board is for. I guess people are gonna have to chime in. If you needed to name a Bon Jovi themed card store, what would it be? I
can only think of Steel Horse. I don't know why. That's all I can think of.
For me, it was Bad Medicine.
Maybe we'll let the wonders of YouTube tell us this years and years.
Bad Medicine may be rough for marketing. I'm not
yeah.
really.
That's why you guys are marketing. I'm not.
Yeah.
But bad is the opposite of good, and you would never take good medicine. You'd always go with the negative. Anyway, that's a different story. We won't get into psychology here. Sorry, Kent, I completely rudely interrupted you.
It's okay. So, Annemarie, you mentioned that you had some Jordan rookies because you were collecting basketball as well, and you said
really nice.
Right, and you said it was to finance your life goals. You had a very good perspective that showed you had no regret. Can you talk to us a bit about that? And before we get into cards, there are a few important items like our audience to learn about you. If this were a movie, we were explaining / building up the characters so the audience can better understand them. As we all know, the context is key to successful communication, even on YouTube. Amit?
Yeah, I went on a little bit of a journey there, but let's just talk about let's go back to
Jordan rookies. What happened?
Yeah, in 1997, I graduated high school, and like a lot of people, I need money for college, for books, and for living and whatnot. And I had all these sport cards. I had sport cards and a drum set. Those are two things that I had. Yep, and both of them got sold. And there were 3 Jordan Fleers, I remember, and I had the sticker. There were a lot, and it's one of those funny things because people always say like, wow, like, do you really regret that? And I'm like, well, I didn't buy Apple stock, I didn't buy Amazon stock, like there's lots of things I didn't do because now I cheat by having the benefit of looking, 25 years ahead. So,
yeah.
You do what you have to do to survive. And I think like a lot of people, it's just part of our story as a collector. I think a lot of people, I love the Bon Jovi Shot Through the Wax. That's a good one. I would think Living on a Prayer.
Living on a Prayer. So this one is the winner.
That might be one.
This is such a good name for a sports shop where there's Bon Jovi.
Yeah.
Living on a Prayer is exactly how you should be when you're opening up wax.
Right, yeah. So I like Bon Jovi names. That's good. That's great participation.
Yeah, that was awesome.
So I put in the context that I'm really lucky that women's sport cards, nobody really seemed to want them in 1997. Right. So the cards that I had found and I got in the car and all through college. I mean, if people wanted the Sue Bird rookies and her Yukon cards and Taurasi's and all of that when I was in 2000 and 2001, I probably would have sold it, to survive. So I'm actually, people say we wish, with card prices rising, are you sad that it took this long? And I'm like, no, I'm really glad it took this long because now I'm in a place where I can enjoy them. So
that and also financed your education too, right? So you got to use financed your career goals, I should say. So that also is an important delimiter. So people understand you gotta get something out of it, and you did at that time. So technically, it's a success.
Yeah, I don't remember exact. I really don't remember how much I sold them for. But let's say you can finance your education with them now. I'm not sure I really financed my entire education with them in 1997.
True. There is that. Just before we go into more questions, we have a lot of people saying things. So first of all, Jeremy, thank you for that Living on a Prayer. I'm never going to...
He has another one coming up.
I'll get to that one. I want to say hi to Lauren Bow. Yes, she and Annemarie Nerd Out Time. We have Love What You Collect as well. She says you're the best. So you have some fans here, Annemarie.
Fine. That's rough.
Oh, this one is good. Shot through the
Not
wax.
to the wax.
That's amazing.
A bad name. Yeah, we can really work on that one.
Love what you collected. Laughing at the living on a prayer. Yeah, I'm trying to keep a straight face as well. And Jeremy's having some banter. This is awesome. We haven't had banter like this before. This is great. We should go down this road more often. Just before we get into other questions, so for those of you who are new, if you like the content on this channel, please don't hesitate to subscribe or like our content, and we'll keep on producing more in the near future. So Annemarie, so one other cool tidbit: when we first introduced ourselves to Annemarie, the first thing I thought of was a country singer. Annemarie knows the country singer. This is not Annemarie. Just
I'm not Annemarie.
Yeah,
I would look really. Yeah, I am not a country western singer.
No,
I am not.
Let's just clarify that for everyone. So
not Annemarie, yes.
So going back a bit, when we talked last, and we got to know you a little bit better, we were talking about how you really love the interest in women. Sorry, you like your influence in collecting came from your influence into women's sports. So can you talk a bit about that? Like, what about it kind of drove you to collect that, and what give some historical background to it?
Well, I remember, you mentioned the first time that I saw, women's card in the, I remember it was Robbinsville Fire Department, Robbinsville, New Jersey. They had a card show. And I remember the first time seeing it. And that was, the year where a lot of her cards had come out. It's funny to think about. We haven't had another woman in the NHL play a game since, which is kind of amazing. Yes. And it just seems so cool. Like, I just remember thinking, like, this is really, really cool. And I wanted to find more cards. And, I think part of, collecting is, a lot of us start and stop. It's not like we find a card in 1992 and we're, on that pursuit, all the way. So, I think one thing that, the rise of, or I would say, one of the greatest things that could have happened for women's sports is the decline of newsroom. Like, the advent of what the internet has been able to give in terms of it's so much easier to have voices. So instead of having to convince a 150-year-old news sports editor and some sport writers that they should cover sport, now you can have these niche channels and these niche websites where you can go to, and you really can have these like really incredible interconnected fan communities. I think also the ability to have an online marketplace meant that you could find, women's cards and whatever without having to convince someone in Robbinsville, New Jersey that they should carry WNBA cards. So I think technology has really opened it up. And I remember buying cards in 98, 99, 2000, and just always keeping my eyes sort of on things going on because, like I said, you sell cards to pursue your life goals. You go to grad school, you start and stop. And I think it was that interconnectedness of the hobby, which actually really kind of brought me back into more intense collecting, which led to me creating my Instagram because during COVID, it just sucked. Like, humans are just we're not meant to socially distance. Like, we're pack animals. Yeah. And, it was the WNBA community. And a lot of those people, really got connected through Prism, not through cards that were 20 years old. And I think, the people are the coolest part of the hobby. When we're just a bunch of like adults buying cardboard. I mean, it's cardboard pictures of, I would go and people would make, even at the Nationals, people were making fun of Pokemon. And I'm like, you spend money on cardboard pictures of millionaires.
Yeah.
Pokemon has a story, right? At least there's a game, right? But the people are cool. It's fun. So, that's
the people,
our tribe.
The people are cool, and the cards are a vehicle to tell a story about ourselves to each other and become friends. And Kent and I use this as a vehicle to kind of spread positivity, inclusivity, and diversity. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's a vehicle, right? It's a vehicle to start a conversation. And it's an icebreaker in a sense. And we wouldn't have met you if we hadn't started a channel or talked to other people and got to meet interesting people like you. And by the way, Annemarie, you're hilarious. I just say, you're actually quite funny. So I'm
better looking than I'm hilarious too. It's hard to see over this channel. I'm really quite the looker. You'll have to believe me.
Oh, well, the masses will tell us exactly that too. Want to get back into the questions here. So there's something, just so everyone is aware, Annemarie has done quite a lot of cool things. One is she's provided consultancy services to various organizations or leagues rather, that wish to increase diversity and inclusivity in their worlds. And I think this is important. And Annemarie, I'd like you to actually talk a bit about that.
Sure. So, one of the things is, I've been an academic. I guess that, whenever I call myself an academic, I say, well, it makes me sound really boring. But, I in 2002, I started my doctoral studies, and I was always really interested in the fact that I could always get my friends to go see the Knicks play, but they never wanted to go see Liberty.
Yeah.
And that always annoyed me. And I feel like, how like medical doctors, like I feel like when you talk to medical doctors and you ask like why you became a doctor, they all had like a weird illness. Like they all had like something weird that they were just like, yeah, it's just puzzled me and I had to figure it out. Right. So for me, the question and looking at why women don't watch women's sports was something that really intrigued me from my experience of trying to get my female friends to watch sport. And, that question was really the focus of my graduate studies. And, once I graduated, reproducing some of that research, working directly with the WNBA and FIFA, and in women's hockey, the multiple leagues, and in soccer, the multiple leagues that have come and gone. So, I think one of the things in my work, with them is at one point, I'm just somebody that has some questions and likes the ability to find answers, but I'm also just like a fan, when I work with, I went into, I did a workshop this was at Madison Square Garden when they had a joint like ticket staff. So the inside sales team worked Knicks, Rangers, and Liberty. And they brought me in to talk about selling the WNBA. And, I said, I'm really here because I want more fans at Liberty games. Right. Yeah. And so at the end, my fandom is sort of the start. And I being a professor and doing what I do, it's a great fake job.
It sounds really cool. So far, like all the things you do sound really interesting. Of course, anybody who isn't in your shoes will always think your world is interesting and better than theirs. So we hope to at least inspire people who are watching the show. Like if you do want to go down a career path like Annemarie, the living proof, you can do stuff like this that you enjoy.
I'm basically a professional sport fan. Like yes, it is stupid. It's amazing. I worked, again, I worked in sport. I worked in various aspects. I still work big sporting events, Super Bowls, Olympics. It's ridiculously awesome. It's a fake job.
And it's refreshing to find, just a bit of a segue, but it's refreshing to find people who actually enjoy what they do, like passionately, because it shows out there that you actually can do what you love, right? You don't have to be stuck behind a desk you don't like. So Annemarie, good kudos to you to following your passion. So speaking of your passion,
my life.
Well, you're
the college didn't pay the bills. There you go.
There you go.
I do this a lot. Students walk by and I'm just waving, turning the lights on. So that's not.
They're like, call security.
Exactly.
Yeah. Mind you, you've got enough helmets there. You could probably kill someone with smacking them over the head. So you wrote, obviously you mentioned you're a professor, and prior to that you wrote a thesis on why women don't watch women's sports. And just before you answer that question, I want to make sure people understand you can actually look up Annemarie's thesis online. It's 195 pages of awesomeness. I'm gonna let me just finish. And there's a quote.
How about that? I would caution people from actually reading it. I could just text me and I'll be like, here's the highlights. But yeah, go ahead.
I did read parts of it, and I tried to read it again. But there are two things I want to pull out of it before I ask you your question. So, you give a special shout out to your sister. So I love the fact that you called it your sister. That means a lot for someone like me who's family minded. I like that. And there's a quote in there from Wendy Wasserstein from 1971.
You're right.
Okay, Wasserstein. She said, she's speaking about, women in general. We knew we were natural resources before anyone decided to tap us. I thought it was an amazing quote.
Was I think, being a Mount Holyoke woman, I think we're required to either quote our founder Mary Lyon or a famous alum in any important document. But that was actually a line from a play called Uncommon Women and Others. And it was about the sort of friendships and the people that she met at Mount Holyoke. And it really is, one of the things I dedicated my dissertation to my sister. And I remember I said, she hates sports, but she loves me. And that's very true. But that idea of, we knew what we were worth before anyone else knew. And I feel that way sometimes when I work with students, but also when I think back on my friendships throughout my life.
That's amazing, and I like that quote, and I love that you put that in there because it gives it's a good character builder to people understand what kind of person you are, and it's important that people know that you are a certain person, a certain mindset, and I appreciate that, and Kent does as well. So let's get into your thesis and your dissertation. How did you go there? Why did you go there? Why did you make that topic the topic of choice?
Well, yeah, I made the topic of choice because I'm tired of not getting my friends to go to stupid women's sporting events. Well, and there was a gap in the literature. The funny thing is people always assumed that if women's sports were going to be commercially viable and successful, it would depend on the support of women. And the truth is that the majority, the average women's sport fan in America is male.
Right.
Men watch more women's sports than women tend to do. And women are, increasingly important viewers of sport in terms of their percentages, and women and men are more alike than different in terms of our sport fandom. But I really kind of wanted to know, and in that I looked at season ticket holders of a large Midwestern university with Division I athletics. You always have to like in being that I graduated from the Ohio State University. I interviewed a cross section, a really diverse group of age and students, and simply just asked the question, why don't you go see the women's games?
Right.
And it was a qualitative dissertation because we didn't really know a lot about what their answers were going to be.
Yeah.
And it turns out that the most salient, the most robust theme that just kept coming out over and over again was something I hadn't thought of, which is kind of funny. When you write up your research, you think, okay, here's my hypotheses, and this is what I think is going to happen. And it just turned out the reason that women don't watch women's sports is because they're men and their lives don't. I hadn't thought of it, right? And you look back and I'm a lesbian. My advisor was a lesbian. My cognitive advisor was a lesbian. We were like, who would have thought that? And it's interesting. We think generationally, right? Men geek sport for women. So, our fathers, our grandfathers, our brothers, our boyfriends, those are the ones that bring us into sport. And in highly involved female sport fans sound like highly involved male sport fans, right? Like we had their perspective, their male gaze. So the tough part of spending 20 plus years studying women's sport fans is they are a frustrating group. Right. They are an intriguingly frustrating group. And it's been interesting. I mean, once you become, teaching sport marketing and sport management, I can't enjoy a game ever. I'm constantly, if I'm watching a broadcast, I'm watching how the announcers are talking about athletes, or, you go to a game and you look at the signage and, you think so it, and also just sports sociology in general. Understanding the way that sport has been used to, control and to oppress, not only to, it like ruins it all. My students will always say like, oh, Dr. F, like you just ruined sport. You take it so literally. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then I'm like, all right, so let's talk about the NBA draft as a modern day slave auction. Anyone? And then they were like, so, and I'm like, okay, fair enough. But that's the cost of education, is when your eyes are open, you can't shut them anymore.
Yeah, I'm an advertising professional in a sense because I'm a project manager for an advertising company, and I'm very much a nerd about advertising in general. I find it very interesting that I actually will watch a game and I'll notice things that no one else will notice. I'm like, why would you do that? Like, why would you say this? And oh, there's a better way to do that. So what I've learned to do is actually tune out and just watch the game. And you know what I do sometimes? I turn the sound off.
Yeah.
And then just watch the game. And I actually find it refreshing way to watch the game.
I sometimes have to do that with breaks, especially like WNBA breaks when they have no clue who the athletes are or how to pronounce their names, don't know the team names. I just will just put it on mute and just be like, my happy space.
Speaking of happy space, Kent, we should get, if anybody in the crowd can let us know the score in a Jays game, that would be fantastic. So I'm on.
What do you mean? We got a WNBA playoff game going on. Stephanie Johnson, what's the score? Stephanie, I know Stephanie's watching.
She's watching.
Okay, so Stephanie, your job is
a score report. I'm jumping on the Sun bandwagon, so we got 2 games tonight.
So Stephanie, if you're watching, I'm sure you are. I saw your name there. Please let us know the score in both events. Thank you.
Maddie, Madison should be watching. She's a teenager, so she's probably dropping the average age of your viewership down to about 45 right now. Having a teenager tune in. So, 66 guys, 60. All right, thank you. Good job, Lauren.
There's 9 minutes left.
Is that 66 for the good folks or the bad folks?
I'm on the Sun bandwagon.
Right you're now. On the Sun. You're losing right now.
Oh.
I'm losing right now, but I'm a Liberty fan, so I'm used to it.
66-63 Chicago.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson.
Okay, so for us Canadian folk, let us know what the Jays are doing. Okay, so going back to your stats. So.
Yes, I want to know what the Jays are doing.
Yes, just thank you, Annemarie, for your support. I can feel it from here.
Oh, Dennis said 3-2 Yankees. Boo.
I didn't want to talk about it. Okay, so I'm really glad that you got into some of the interesting facts. We wanted to ask you about that, but before you tell us about more, there's a couple there's one that I found particularly fascinating. Mind you, this is from a while ago, but let's just get into it. 40.8% of fans of the NHL are women. So I learned that today. I like thinking that number should be higher. We were just at a hockey evaluation camp for young women and young girls and boys, and we've noticed the participation going up with young girls. So that's good to see as well. But I thought there'd be more fans.
Women hockey fans are nuts. Women who are highly involved hockey fans, they're intense. You may know this, but my students who are hockey fans, they're in it to win it. They're unlike female hockey fans are nut jobs in a good way, but they're crazy.
Male hockey fans are nut jobs too. Well, it's our country sport, so yeah. Tell us some other interesting facts you found that coming out of your summary of your thesis.
Trying to think. It's been a long time since I mean, part of it, I would say I worked with the WNBA and the NBA on recreating that study, and we focused on crossover markets. So we looked at markets where they had both an NBA and WNBA franchise, right? Now, the trouble is when you ask people why they don't do something, right, they're going to tell you 2 things: time and money. Right, that's always going to be the universal, even if it doesn't matter. NBA season ticket holders telling me the reason they don't go to WNBA games is because of money. It is nutty, right? That can't be true. One thing I thought was interesting is the biggest barrier. One of the biggest barriers we observed, for instance, to New York, and this is when the Knicks and the Liberty were playing in the same arena, was Knicks season ticket holders asking where the Liberty play.
Oh,
you see this. We assume too much. We assume way too much about what people understand and what they're paying attention to. We know that there is no difference. Research has consistently said. And actually, it was research. There was research done in basketball where they had people watch women's and men's basketball, and they strapped all these sort of nodes and measurement indicators to look at stress and arousal levels and excitement. And one thing they noted is physically there's no difference. That people don't actually, that our perception of excitement and drama is all in our minds. It's all socially ingrained in us, and it's powerful. Perception is really, really powerful. So
Interesting. I could talk all day about this, so I we'll say if we have time at the end, we'll get back
Sure.
into this. Sorry, Kent, go ahead, buddy.
Yeah. So Annemarie, when you wrote the thesis back in 2006, so it's been about 15 years now.
I'm old.
If you had to look, yeah. So if you had to look back to how it all started and where we are today, do you think much has changed in your mind?
Yeah, I think a lot has changed, and I don't even think we have to look at it on a 15-year continuum. I mean, I think about the difference in agency between Carrie Strug and Simone Biles.
Yes.
Carrie Strug is injured, and here she is pushed into competing one more time on that vault, and is a hero and gets carried off. That's abuse. I think by today's standards, we look at that and say that's not cool. Like that's not that. Then you see Simone Biles who can say, you know what? No. Like enough. Like I have control. I have the agency to do this. Maybe Carrie Strug didn't. Right.
Yeah.
I think society, and I think to a large part, it hasn't been 15 years. I think it's really been, the Me Too movement and greater acceptance. I don't know if, like, society accepts women's more, or women just stopped waiting for society to accept it. I don't, I mean, when I was doing, I work with the WNBA, we couldn't ask questions about sexual orientation in terms of demographic data because of the belief by the NBA that they couldn't market to the LGBT community and families at the same time. And now we have a league that is, that put a diversity council together and made 2020 the year of social justice, and has Black Lives Matters on their shirts. It is we talk about quotes, but I love the Tony Kushner quote where he says, "The world only spins forward." Like we are all like, there's gonna be blips, and there's gonna be times where it's gonna go backwards, but we're all working. The world's only moving towards more, I think, freedom, and so I think everything has changed. I think society gets moved along by people in sport that help move it along, but I also think sport moves along by people outside of sport that do the same. So I think so much has changed.
Yeah, it's really good insight, actually. And also, 15 years ago is a long time. That's almost a generation, right? So 20 generations, 25 years, 15 of that, right? We're also going into a new generation, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think, some of my students will just be like, oh, like change takes so long. But I'm also like, oh my God, change happens so fast. About what like 10-year-old Annemarie would say about society now and freedoms now, and the fact that I can have this haircut and wear this shirt and coach men's rugby. And, I mean, I think change is slow, but change can often feel also really fast.
It's inertia too, right? Once you get enough, it's like a snowball. It starts to roll once it gets bigger, bigger, bigger. Yeah, it's interesting.
I hope so.
So it kind of leads me into my next question for you, which is, what do you think we can do better as a society as a whole? Are we there yet? I don't think we're there yet. Definitely not.
No, dude. I say I only know I'm a woman when I get paid. I mean, I don't like a lot, I think part of it is, I mean, we're a society that has been built upon oppression, and those social forces take a long time. Like I say, everyone this year at the National was like, oh yeah, this National is all about visibility, and you got your women in card group, and isn't it great? And I'm like, yeah, and there's not one autograph signer that's a chick. Like, if you put all the autograph signers, to repopulate the planet, they would die off in 30 years. Like wow, yeah. One female autograph signer at the National, but yeah, keep patting yourself on the back for your inclusivity. I mean, yeah.
I know you're joking, but you're being serious at the same time. So your delivery is still delivering an important message. So that's
absolutely,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it goes back, again, I've been studying women's sport and attitudes about female sport for 20 years now, right? And this is it's always the issue I get in organizations, right? I don't go watch the WNBA because it's boring and nobody goes. But if that's the case, then it's the chicken and the egg. But perception is really, really powerful, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I think we've got to stop. I've sort of cut in on some, in talking to people in the hobby when they're like, yeah, women are an increasing, role. I'm like, no, women have always been here. We've always been here, right? You're just, it's like, people say, oh yeah, like women's sports started in 1972 with Title IX. No, that's just when men found out they could make money off of it. Women have been playing sports forever. Women have been part of the hobby forever. And, I said this to a bunch of people, like women control 86% of household spending in America. So women might have not been 86% of the people on the floor at the National, but they were probably controlling most of those transactions, right? So we've already been here, we're not asking permission to show up. My $25 I'll overpay for cardboard is just as good as, Kent's $25 for cardboard. Yeah. But I think the difference is that we're not interested in your permission anymore.
Yeah. Actually, that's a really good point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, it's true.
Sorry, I had a moment of, this is what I like. You're getting to see live. Actually, moments of like, oh wow, an aha moment in my head. I like those.
But
moments.
it's interesting because I think I love the online communities. I love the online communities for sports. But it is really funny, specifically in women's sport communities, to see what happens. The amount of mansplaining that can go on, right? It's amazing to me to see Sabrina has a bad game and every third male is just bashing her. But please sell me your cards after she has a good game. I'm constantly amazed at the amount of distaste there is for female athletes, unless you can flip their cards and make money. It's like we're so ready to disrespect the athlete, but embrace their card as a commodity.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's convenient.
It is a commoditized environment, so for sure, yeah.
Yeah. It's just, but it's funny seeing them. It's funny the reaction, I think, when particularly females point it out to them.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they're not used to necessarily females in a space. Again, I study gender in sport, right? Male, we know this in the research. In my dissertation, pointed this out. Highly involved women fans in sport get excluded from male conversations because it's social currency for men. It's how men bond. It's how men form connection. When women enter that space, what do? Right? So I'll be in conversations with people and like for instance, I'll be with my friends, and they'll be even some of my guy friends, right? And they'll talk about sport, and they don't know what they're talking about. But I can't point that out to them, and they won't point it out. They won't point that out, right? But it's funny, I think, when men enter particularly online social communities about women's sport, how they reproduce patriarchy, how they reproduce misogyny. But it's right. I'm going to reproduce misogyny, but I'm a good guy because look, I collect women's sports. I collect Sabrina's trading card, right? Like, look, yay! I'll make $1 off this Simona Biles card, but man, what a loser. It's just and then when you call them on it, it's they don't know what to do.
Well, you have to, right? In order to be progressive, you kind of have to push that envelope. So that continually needs to happen, right?
I mean, again, equality when you're used to privilege feels like oppression.
I'm learning a lot today. I'm telling you right now.
Well said, actually. Yeah. Well said, yes.
So,
you're I'm gonna have to write these down.
Unsteadiness, right? I usually tell people at cards when they're like, whoa, there's women on sport cards. I'm like, yeah, we got the right to vote and we can own land. I just bought property. It's crazy, right?
No, your points are very well taken. And I'm actually even more glad now that we have you on, because this is the type of stuff we want to talk more about, promote, and just to keep the conversation going. So just before we go into other questions,
Yeah, there's a lot of comments.
I just want to let's go back up. It's not too often have this many comments, so I'm going to take advantage of reading them. So, Lauren says yes, Annemarie. Yes, so it must be she's talking about the things that you were talking about. Again, she's respecting what you just said.
Lauren keeps hitting 1-in-1 black prism cards. So
she does. Wow.
Lauren has the hot hand right now in some breaks. So I need some of her mojo.
Yeah, Lauren spread that for our friend here. Indigenous rookie card name. He is also appreciating your message. Stephanie Johnson as well.
Louder for the people in the back.
Yep. I'm just gonna let you read all the warm comments you're getting. So well said. Name is respect. Thank you for saying all this. Stephanie Johnson says all of this periods. Oh, it's gonna keep going. I'm just gonna keep reading. So we have I totally agree with you, Annemarie from Love What You Collect. Our friend Sam from Women of the Hobby says, hi, everyone. What's up, Annemarie? Hope you had a great birthday. Enjoyed the Bills win. Birthday. Hold on. When was your birthday?
The Bills scored 43 points on my 43rd birthday.
That's awesome. Birthday. Right?
Belated birthday. I'm going to say happy birthday. I'm not going to sing it.
No, you're fine. I'm a Libra, so I don't make decisions well, and I'm overly social. So there you go.
You don't make decisions well, except when it comes to cards. 6-2
Yankees. Boo.
I'm feeling this. I might have to quit the show and go cry.
Never make a movie, Pride of the Blue Jays.
Yes. Well, they might. Yeah, who cares?
Not a nice guess.
Honest guess. That's better. You've been getting you've been getting all the gold autos. Well, I don't know. You're sharing the wealth, it looks like.
We're trying. You got to share.
Yeah. Okay, so let's
go. Lauren said boo Yankees, so she's not a Yankees fan.
Oh, Lauren, you become a friend of ours. You're a friend of the show.
It's the last Sophie Cunningham that comes out of my stack for her. There you go.
Where are we now? I can't lost place. Oh, sorry. So now we're going to get into the focus of your card collection. Kent, go ahead, buddy.
Let's talk cards.
Let's talk cards. Yes.
Yes. So we know that Manon started the passion, but where did it go and how did it go from there?
So many different places. Well, I think partly soccer was a big one that I collected. Softball, there were already a lot of good sets. Basketball, I would say probably is the bulk of the cards that I have is basketball. One, because they were available. And two, it was just, basketball has been one of the most visible. I would collect sets. So I was like a real set collector, I got, when people ask like, oh, when did you buy the 98 card from, Sue Bird or freshman year at UConn? I'm like, oh, I got it at Hartford. Like I got it at the game. Right. Or I have my 1992 Mia Hamm. Right.
That's awesome. I like that card.
So 13-year-old Annemarie ripped this out of the Sports Illustrated for Kids.
Right. Yep.
Did not care too much about corners, clearly. Like I'm not gonna go back if I had a time machine. Clearly 13-year-old Annemarie wasn't worried about Gem minting this. So there you go. So like things like that. And again, what I used to do is I would have cards and I would have a Rubbermaid bin, right? Like 2 Rubbermaid bins, and I would have them in binders, and I'd put them in the Rubbermaid bin, and I'd drop them in the back of my car, right? Because like you move in your 20s like all the time. Like there are nomadic populations across the world that move less than 20-year-old college students, right?
Yeah.
So you move 30 times before the age of 30, and I would just pick up the bin and put it in my car, and then put it in put it in the closet, so the bin has followed me. The bin has followed me everywhere. So
I'm amazed that you still have and you didn't lose it.
I know I didn't, and part of it is you have a bin, you put it in your closet, but I've gotten them out of I've gotten them out of the binders because in some ways they were good, in some ways I'm like, I don't know if I want this very SP Diana Taurasi freshman card in there, but yeah.
Can you share with us some of your favorite cards?
Favorite cards. That's hard, right? I would say it's like picking your favorite child, but like, parents have a favorite child. Like,
Sure. I'm
like
sure there's some that stand out better than the others.
everyone's favorite child. Okay, so I brought some cards, and again, sometimes this was always, if people say what my favorite card is, I'll always bring up the the 36 Gaudy Babe Diedrichson card as one that, or actually 1933. But then there's like other cards I really like. Like, so in 1991, this is so weird. The like National Education Association had one of their national conferences, and they created cards of Congress.
Oh, that didn't work. Sorry.
Okay. They created cards of Congress, right? And this is a card of Patsy Mink, one of the cards they created. And Patsy Mink was the author of Title IX, right?
Oh.
So I said, if Title IX had a card, it would be Patsy. This is Title IX's card. I love Helen Willis Moody. She is one of the greatest tennis players of all time. This is her 1935 tobacco card. I just love her look. Like, she just looks like she doesn't care, right? I mean, people look at it and they say, "Oh my God, that's in beautiful condition. You should send it in." But I don't want to say it. She just it's just such a cool expression that I love. And then, it's little things. It's, I mentioned, the goats, right? The Serena,
absolutely, yep.
Simone. One card that I absolutely love, my Flojo Auto.
Yeah,
is a card that
that's cool.
That I really, really love.
Is she the one that had the long nails? Or
yeah,
that Jackie Joyner Kersey?
For a while, they both did. They were both, but
yeah.
But one of her autos is one that I really love. So this is I brought this being the Canadians. I figure this card. This card took me a long time to find.
Really?
This is the Upper Deck. This is the 2004. But this is why this was such a pain to get. This is the Canadian exclusive edition.
Yeah.
So
from the lockout year.
Yeah.
Canada up to 25, right?
Right.
It took me forever. I guess like you guys don't like let go of your cards, like it's not like you have to sell. You don't have to sell your cards, when you get sick for healthcare issues. So you're holding on to them. So I had to at least bring one hockey card, and then I have another. You had asked me, what are my recent cards that I got, and it's so funny because I said, okay, I'm going to bring the cards I got today, and this is a good example of how weird it is, how weird my collection is, right? Like
Okay.
Here are the three cards, right? One, it's so large. This came in the mail today. This is 1977 Martina Navratilova.
I remember those cards.
It is even larger because I bought it already slabbed. Now what's interesting is a lot of people consider this her rookie, but I don't. There is a 1976 Americana card out of Germany that is very, very rare. It is, but I would consider the Parade Americana card her rookie. But to give you an idea, like this is a PSA 5. Angie is listening now. She's my PSA expert. This was $10, right? Yeah. The amazing thing is the incredible value. Like, I need people to stop selling cards this cheap because I really need to stop spending money. And then the other two cards, one is Brianna Decker's college card, her freshman year of Wisconsin, and the Mojo 2021 Defensive Player of the Year, Sylvia Fowles. So here's a good my postal worker probably thinks I'm nuts, right? But this is one day in the life of collecting cards on gender. It's a really cool mishmash of stuff.
You know what? I almost wish I didn't realize this now, but Cindy Dick has equally a good collection, and I know you two met. Mm-hmm. I should have tagged her tonight to watch this. I think she would have enjoyed this. Anyways, I'll reach out to her on Instagram just to make sure she knows that.
I actually have a question for her that you can ask. I'm trying to figure out what her oldest soccer card is that she has, because I got a message. I get a lot of messages through Instagram about why 1991 is considered Marta's rookie card. And, she does, or 2011 is considered her rookie card. And I would say, well, I would consider it 2009. And people say, like, how is it possible there's not an earlier card of Marta? And I said, because if you're not valued, who's going to make a card of you? Right? Like that's why. There might
Sure.
not have been, the Brazilian soccer, there wasn't having the kind of, American soccer is weird. Like American soccer is like no other soccer in the world in terms of gender balance and perception. So
Interesting. So in that pile, what was your oldest card?
the oldest card that I have is in 1886. Allen and Ginter created a set out of Virginia Brights, and there's basically two types of cards, but basically they call them girl ball players. One of the subsets is in uniform, the other isn't. The interesting thing actually about the Virginia Brights Allen Ginter set is they were the first tobacco company to employ women.
Oh,
okay.
In their warehouses, rolling cigarettes. And it's interesting. The cards, like the 1886 Virginia Brights cards, actually served a function because they were thicker than sort of normal, like marketing type, like tobacco era cards, because they were used to roll the tobacco.
You're kidding.
Oh,
yeah, they actually and stamp it out. So they actually kind of serve more of a purpose. But I think about that when I look through my collection and see those cards. Like, yeah, they made the cards for the women, and they were the first to work in their warehouses.
Interesting. And then the next question you already answered was, which is your recent pickup? We'll get into how many total cards do you own right now?
Roughly.
Depends if my partner's listening or not. So again, a lot. Well, I don't. So there's like two kinds of ways, I guess, that I look at cards. I have my sets, and then I have the like cards that I chart and I follow and I inventory. I have in that list, I'm up to about 4,700 that I individually.
That's not bad.
That's impressive, actually.
Yeah. That doesn't include sets though. So 4,700 individual cards that I list out, but that does, that doesn't include any card in a set.
But you think about it, that's a 4-lane box holds 3,200. Let's say 2 4-lane boxes is about 5,000 cards slabbed. So it's not too bad. That's not too bad.
Right. But that's also, I haven't inventoried everything, but my inventory right now shows about 4,700 women's cards.
My inventory shows 0 because I haven't gotten to it yet.
Fair enough.
I just if I start inventorying, I might die. You can see this is just one shelf. So you also answered another question in showing you do collect all 4 major sports. Did I see soccer? Did I see soccer? I did see soccer.
Oh, I have cricket cards. So
cricket.
I have bowling cards. I have if women play it as a sport, I collect legends across sport, right?
Okay.
So I will collect I have skateboarding, surfing.
Interesting.
It is interesting there's so many different varieties. So yeah, absolutely. It's really fun. AFL cards. Yeah, a lot of different cards.
Man, there's probably no sport you haven't touched, but we'll tackle that for another episode in the future.
Wrestling. I don't collect WWE.
I don't like.
Okay, well there you go. There's one aspect you don't collect.
I'm not a wrestling fan, so I don't go there.
At the National, I remember there's one person at the National. I said, "Hey, do you have any women's cards?" He goes, "Yeah." And he pulls out this box, and it's porn. And I'm like, like no, like these women are paid better than the women's cards that I collect. So
yeah.
You can find anything at the National. They weren't lying.
That is true. You can find anything at the National, even things you're not expecting to find.
Or find things that you want to find, but unfortunately aren't things you really need. Anyway, that's a different story. Kent, go ahead, buddy.
So if somebody wanted to see cards in your collection, where's the best place for them to go and see that?
My Instagram, Women on Tops. I feature cards in my collection. That's probably, and again, part of it is like the stories around it, which is fun because I also try to do some, fun kind of creative ways of presenting them, but that's probably the best. Good, Connecticut's up finally. That's probably the best way to see the what my collection is, or at least, and I will say this: the Instagram has really required me to have a much better inventory of my cards, so that I know what I have and what I'm able to highlight.
Well, you take a lot of care with it, right? Because you post a card and artwork with it, so there's it's done quite well. Do you do the artwork? Where do you get that from?
I use a variety of different actually apps on it to be able to adjust and filter, and it's really fun. It keeps me out of trouble. So that's good. It's just I use a bunch of different filters and stuff, and I just try to make things look a little cool and interesting.
No, you do a good job of that for sure. Go ahead, Kent.
Now, when we met up prior to the live show, you had a particularly interesting card that has two individuals who are totally polar opposites. Can you explain to us in the audience the significance of that card, if you will?
This is like I thought I actually brought it. Let me grab it. This is the weirdest card. People say what are weird cards you find, right?
Right.
This is probably one of the strangest cards. So I'm not sure if you can really see it well. But this is a Grand Slam Ace Authentic. Somebody at Ace Authentic decided to put two tennis legends that couldn't be more unlikely to ever go and have a drink together. Martina Navratilova and Margaret Court. Margaret Court, who has very strong anti-GLBT stances and opinions, and Martina Navratilova, who, with a variety of other tennis legends, have actually petitioned and led the fight to have Margaret Court's name removed from center court, I believe, at one of the national tennis centers. So they are immortalized together. That is probably the closest they will ever get. It is just so bizarre. It is so bizarre, and I love it so much. I love it so much.
Yes, it has a good historical significance. So I'm glad that you brought that for all of us to learn. It'll be forever immortalized in YouTube land. I've got some more questions here. Hold on. Let's go back here. I'm going to go to the latest
questions and updates.
Okay, so first of all, 84, 82, I think that's Connecticut. No, sorry, CT. Who's CT?
Connecticut.
I was right. Connecticut. She said something about, oh my gosh, 3 free throws for coming up for Copper. Don't know what team.
Lauren is trying to make it happen. She's
okay.
Stephanie just updated it.
All tied up. Angie loves I don't know which card it was, but she loves one of your cards. You appreciate the cards more than others do. That's the passion of collecting. You need to write your book on women's sports cards. Are you?
No, I'm definitely not writing a book on women's sports anytime soon. Angie is actually a very good example of this idea of that women have been here all the time. She is, I know she's top 5, I think, on the PSA registry for Giannis. She is a wizard with grading, and it is it is people like Angie that are there, that are backbones of the hobby. Just because women aren't on every single podcast or breaker or promoting themselves doesn't mean that we aren't here. There's people like Angie and people like Lauren and people like Erica and Stephanie. She loves her Giannis cards. The people that are on here can talk your ear off about cards and the hobby and the sport. But if we waited, like I said, if we were waiting for an invitation to show up in the hobby, we'd probably be waiting a long time. So
I'm going to extend an invite to Angie. We would love to talk to you about your Giannis card and your PSA registry achievements. So if you're interested, please reach out to us. She's
a huge nerd, massive nerd.
Nerd is good.
Nerds are good for our program.
Yes. Right. It's a very good requirement. And I completely lost track of where we are.
I can tell you where we are.
Yeah.
So we spoke about the fact that you don't chase graded cards per se.
Oh, yes.
Generally.
Can you tell us why you don't and what it is about card imperfections that appeal to you?
Yeah, so I would say a couple of things. One, the fact that everyone's so obsessed with the PSA 10 means that it is a great time to be bidding on PSA 8s. Right?
I would agree, yeah.
It's awesome right now. I love the fact that sometimes a card from 1940 looks like a card from 1940, and you can buy it for like 1940 prices because everyone wants the PSA 10, right? I look 43. PSA would I'm not centered. I have really problematic surface errors. Like I print lines all over, right? Like cards, I mean, for me, the best values out there today are if you are willing to accept a card that isn't flawless, like the athlete on it and the person collecting it, there is tons of value. This card in a PSA 10 or this card for a PSA 9 is for sale for like $8,000.
Sure,
because
yeah.
the population of one, right? So it looks like it was made in 1974. I was made in 1978, and I look like I was made in 1978. So, for me, it's a great time to not be worried about things that are flawless because that's where the value is.
No, that's a very good way of looking at it, for sure. Absolutely. I think more people should do
that. We have some scores. Sorry. Someone say overtime. Someone in here said overtime. Who said overtime? Lauren said overtime. But which game?
They're still talking about the Connecticut game. Dennis, what's Dennis's Hall of Fame rookie project? Am I allowed to ask them questions?
Yes, you can. Go ahead.
Yes.
Am I freestyling now? Oh, God.
You're freestyling, but this is the beauty of...
allowed.
I want to hear about this Hall of Fame rookie project.
Dennis, you can write in there. It's give her an update. Dennis actually has quite an extensive non-sport collection. He's got I believe it's Batman. I'm forgetting for Batman and Robin from like the back in the day. He's got an impressive baseball collection. Like it's actually really cool. He's on Instagram too. So it's Dennis Lescombert, like the name you see here.
Oh, awesome. No, I only say that because I did my top 100 basketball rookies project, which I just finished. So I wanted to see what that is. That's kind of fun.
So Dennis, you're on the clock.
Yeah, Dennis, you're on the clock. So we have someone interested in your collection. So we're definitely open to Dennis coming in and talking about it. So let me see, Kent. So we talked about the tennis card.
Still me. So we spoke about never really meeting our heroes. More importantly, we spoke about whether or not you would buy a card of someone you do not respect. Yeah. So I said I would not, and I would quickly turf the card. What are your thoughts on that?
So hard, right? Like, yes. Okay. So like Margaret Court. Let's
Margaret
here. Me and Maggie, right? Like I have Maggie, I have Margaret Court auto cards, right? Like Margaret Court would not probably have a beer with me, right? And I struggle with that. At one end of the spectrum, I say, is it wrong to have, would I go out of my way maybe to get a Margaret Court card? I don't know. Do I wish homophobes weren't also great tennis players? Yes, that would be convenient. I don't know. I don't know if I should purge her from my collection. I struggle with this one. I wouldn't go out. Sure. I'm not buying any Michael Vick cards anytime soon. I'm not going to buy any Ben Roethlisberger cards, but I think it's complicated, right? Because I think human beings are complicated. Like at one end, Kobe Bryant, right, was a great supporter of women's sports and women's basketball, and he committed sexual assault.
Yeah.
Those two don't negate each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, two things can be true at the same time. So I think for me, the way I look at it is that Margaret Court is just part of that complexity.
Right.
And the same way that I would probably keep a Kobe card.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, it's a conundrum we discussed before. I personally have turfed cards out of my collection if I don't respect the player. I don't want to meet my heroes. It would be disappointing for me. It would make for someone to rob me of my collection, and for being completely disrespectful human being, I wouldn't want to do it. So I just don't want to know them. It's terrible. Trying to think of who I recently turfed out of my collection. I'm sure there are a few. Anyways, it'll come to me. So we want to talk about one of the things you talk about. You're passionate for card collecting, but we noticed, even though you love the WNBA, Panini hasn't exactly made some inroads with you with the WNBA product. So why don't you take the opportunity now to tell us a little bit what Panini can do a little bit better and some of the mistakes they made?
Well, I think Panini Panini was just lazy with this product, right? So, there's obvious specific issues with you're putting, Sydney Weiss his picture on Christy Tolliver's card. Christy Tolliver, who is not insignificant in basketball, quite an acclaimed player. But it's just little. It's not. I wouldn't even say it's little things. It's you've got a 3-year-old picture of Lainey with she's got her dream jersey, but but now she's on the Liberty or with the Fever. You've got the picture quality. I don't think the pictures on this were particularly good. It's just lazy. It's just I just think it's lazy. And this isn't the first time Lauren points out that they've gotten names wrong. And I know people will say, well, Panini gets things wrong with NFL and gets things wrong with whatnot, but NFL and men's sports don't have the kinds of problems with anonymity that women's sports have.
Yep. Yeah.
And so I think they need to again I think it's laziness. And people will say, well, do you think it's intentional or not? And I'll say, I don't know if it really matters. It's lazy, so I would hope for more like in the future, and maybe with Fanatics. I mean, maybe Fanatics, as a company, will be more responsive because they have had more of a foothold in direct to consumer products than maybe Panini with their distributors. I don't know. I think we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, the other thing is it's just like boring. Like, I want a relic card. Like, give me a dual auto. Like, give me something. Like, give me a shoe card. Give me whatever. Just give me just something different. I think there's just a lack of creativity.
Yeah, and we have some good friends at Panini, so we'll definitely, when we meet with them, we'll just pass some of your thoughts along. And also, this is also recorded and saved, so people can look at that way. I know there are problems in other products and stuff, but your point about the anonymity of the sports and the importance to promote it, you need to get it right. So I do agree with your point there. So in the vein of we're getting to the end, and I'm kind of sad we're at the end. I want to keep talking to you, but I know you have a lot of paperwork to do, so I don't want to keep you from that.
Yes, a lot of really bad papers I need to read.
Yes. Or no. In the vein of education, and this is a tough question, but you seem to be really good at answering my tough questions or our tough questions. If you had to boil it down to one thing someone to take away from, like, when they come to learn about you and your collection, what is the one thing you want them to take away with them from a thought process of your collection?
That women have always been playing sports. We didn't start playing sports in 1972. Yeah. That women's sport communities have always existed. And it didn't just appear in 1972. I don't know, because so much of that, there's such an amazing history before Rittenhouse and Panini, right, and your Ultra got to it. I mean, there just is, right? So, I think, the diversity of athletes, I think, is really exciting. That I hope that's a takeaway. And hopefully that there's really is a market for it, right? I honestly think that there is a really strong market for women's sport cards. I think it's a growing market. I think you think about in COVID, where we had massive declines in sport viewership. I mean, all across the board, from 61% decline in Stanley Cup viewership, right, to 6% decline in NFL, 68% increase in WNBA viewership, a 15% increase in finals viewership. And the reason is, when we put women's sport on television, when we put women's sport, when we make it easier to find, people want to watch it because it's a great product.
I would agree with you. Yeah. Definitely.
I agree. I mean, I can speak from the women's. No, I can't speak. I can say what I've watched from the women's national hockey program. Like the games are amazing. I prefer to watch them over the men's game because it's just the competition's insane. The games are insane. It's fast. Go look at any Olympic hockey between U.S. and Canada. It's amazing. So I hope everyone goes out and watch the game. It's been amazing. Annemarie, we're at our last question, sadly, but I have to want to keep going. But we're definitely going to have you back because you're a breath of fresh air, and
Yeah.
there's so
I
many
got
topics we
cards.
can do. You can bring Angie with you. I'm going to ask you the question we ask all our guests at the end, and it's actually one of our favorite parts of the show. So Angie, so I'm getting names mixed up now. Annemarie, what inspires you?
This can be anything. It doesn't have to be specifically to sports cards.
Yeah, can be anything.
My men's rugby players inspire me.
Okay.
I have this group of 30 awkward 19 to 22-year-old guys who deeply allow themselves to be seen and vulnerable, and I think have allowed themselves the opportunity to be something more than what society says. Society gives women a lot of really narrow ways that they can be, but society also does the same to men. And I think every day that I'm around these guys, they're my example of how things are going to get better. That you just need to hold on until they're, empowered. People ask me a lot how it is that I am, how do you get 20-year-old guys to listen to you? And I say, oh, it's not the 20-year-old guys, it's the 50-year-old guys that are the issue. Yeah. I just think that I don't know. I think they absolutely inspire me, every single day. The quality of human beings that they are, yeah.
No, enough said. Awesome. That's an excellent answer.
Cool. So it's sad that we're at the end of the show, but I think Annemarie, we want to have you back
for sure.
a million times over. So we're going to definitely reach out to you. There are many angles we can take with your story or your professorship and just the things you've done.
It's just we're gonna have to buy more cards. See, I was gonna cut back. I was not gonna buy that many cards, but now I'm gonna have to go and buy more cards. So
yeah, but Annemarie, you said earlier that's because
I'll find new cards.
But Annemarie, you said earlier they don't cost a lot of money right now, so you can't afford them.
It's volume though. That's
Well, you just have to get a bigger place, and
there's always there's always a bigger shoebox.
Yes, there's always a bigger shoebox. I want to thank you for coming on the show and putting yourself out there like you did. It's not easy, but you did a fantastic job. You're well spoken. You're highly educated and very articulate.
Good looking. You forgot good looking. Very important.
Good looking. You're good looking, and you have a passion.
This is totally fun and geeky and nerdy, and it's a lot of fun. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. I want to do this again. And like I said, there's many angles we can do, and it also combine things we can do with other guests and whatnot. For example, when we met with Cindy and you can talk about your parallel universes of card collections, right? There's that. I see Angie said she'll come on with you any day, so we have that as well.
Thanks, Stephanie. Thank you, Stephanie.
What did Stephanie say? Sorry, did I miss anything?
Yeah, keep going down.
Is the ultimate New York Liberty Sabrina collector. You can't mention to her. You can't refer to Sabrina as Jackie Styles 2.0. She actually gets physically ill at that. But a lot of the people in the group never heard of Jackie Styles, so it's a joke that goes over their head, but not for poor Stephanie and myself.
And also, Stephanie's you talked about. She has pretty much. Is she the one with the Prism one-on-ones?
That's Lauren, who's been getting all the black cards, and then Stephanie has one of the best slab collections of Sabrina.
Slabs.
So Stephanie, we're gonna have to.
She has amazing cards, but these are like a lot of the women in here. I mean, I talk to Stephanie probably every single day. I have never met her in person, and that's like the fun sort of. I met Angie at the National. Lauren, I've never met in person, right? But we talk to them all the time because I see. I mean, these communities are so important, and one thing that we know about areas of mentorship, the Old Boys Network is strong, and I get it. The Old Girls Network is very, very strong, and we definitely take care of each other. So
that's
Hear,
awesome
hear.
to hear, and it sounds like there's some collection and stories that we can tell from that perspective as well. So for Angie and Stephanie and Lauren, a bunch of you all that I'm sure I'm forgetting names. We would love to have you on to talk about this, because these are messages that we want to leave forever for people to be inspired to keep collecting. The more voices that are out there, like Annemarie, who are talk so confidently and passionately about the sport, the hobby itself. We just got to keep the message going strong. So
I mean, we could have them all on at one time on one show.
oh,
just
that
have,
is true.
for
just have a nice, just have a nice big kumbaya.
Okay, Kent, we got to add that to our list of things.
It's a takeover. You need to have the women takeover, thinking outside the box, cardboard culture.
Sure. Actually,
Sure.
yeah, actually, that's okay. I like that.
The women take over. We take over an episode and just rant to each other.
I like that. And roast marshmallows virtually. Sure. Yes.
I'll interview you. Maybe I need to interview both of you.
There you go.
There you go. We could do that. I actually like that idea. So let's keep talking.
We'll talk.
You stay there for a second. We're gonna say goodbye to everyone. Just hang out, and we'll talk to you after.
Yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in tonight. Appreciate it.
We had a really high viewership, so thank you, Annemarie, for bringing people to our show. Thank you for all of those who've had the kind comments, and those who are regulars and new people. Please reach out to us at any time. Have a good evening, folks.
Good night, all.